Yeah?
Where's the first
Yeah.
Alright,
You got ice on your chest?
you know where you are? You know what state you're in?
Yeah, California.
What city are you in?
Oh yeah, we want to do that.
Yo, paramedic.
Yeah.
Before we go,
Chaos erupted when Jake Paul found himself on the receiving end of a punch from none other than Joe Rogan. Yes, the same Joe Rogan, known for the Joe Rogan Experience. What many don't realize, though, is that Joe isn't just a voice behind the mic. He used to throw punches in the ring, and his hits are still as brutal as ever. A die-hard Mike Tyson fan and staunch supporter, Joe wasn't about to let Jake disrespect his idol without consequences. It all started when Jake ran his mouth, bad-mouthing Tyson right in front of Joe. Big mistake. Moments later, Jake was in the hospital nursing a shoulder detachment, probably regretting every word. But what exactly did Jake say to push Joe into full Hulk mode? Don't worry, we'll get to that juicy part soon enough. First, let's rewind and set the stage. The confrontation took place at an ultra-exclusive hush-hush gathering featuring Joe Rogan, Jake Paul, Ryan Garcia, and other big names from the fight world. It was like an Avengers assembly for combat sports, and no one saw this meeting coming. The event, shrouded in secrecy, unfolded in a dimly lit, luxurious setting where the tension was so palpable you could cut it with a knife. Jake, true to form, didn't hold back, and his provocative comments about Tyson set off a chain reaction that no one will forget anytime soon.
Yeah, the news is true, folks. I, Jake Paul, will be fighting Mike Perry, Tampa, Florida, July 20th.
After announcing his fight with Mike Perry and canceling the much-anticipated bout with Mike Tyson, Jake Paul didn't hold back, openly questioning Tyson's relevance in the boxing world. Tyson's a has-been, Jake declared at the gathering, his voice dripping with condescension. Fighting him would be like finding an old man in the park. What's the point? The room fell into stunned silence, the audacity of Jake's words sucking the air out of the space. But Jake wasn't finished. Turning his attention to Joe Rogan, who sat quietly on the edge of the room, Jake upped the ante. Joe's stuck in the past, Jake sneered. He's never given me any credit because he's biased toward the old school guys. He can't stand that someone like me is shaking up the sport. His words, sharp and unapologetic, sent ripples of tension through the crowd. The smug grin on Jake's face as he reveled in his own provocations only added fuel to the fire. Joe Rogan, known for his composed demeanor, initially listened to Jake Paul's provocations in silence. However, as Jake's words grew sharper, Rogan's expression began to harden. The tension in the room was palpable, thickening the air like an impending storm. Rogan's eyes narrowed as he leaned forward slightly, his posture shifting from relaxed to alert. It was clear Jake's taunts were hitting a nerve. The atmosphere became electric, charged with the anticipation of confrontation. Notable figures like Ryan Garcia, who had been chatting animatedly moments earlier, fell silent. Their eyes darted between Jake and Rogan, the weight of the moment pressing down on everyone. Jake's audacious accusations against both Tyson and Rogan left the room in stunned disbelief. Joe's been riding on his reputation for too long, Jake declared, his tone dripping with arrogance. He talks big, but he's just another guy who can't let go of the past. He's jealous because I'm the future of this sport, and he can't handle it. The boldness of Jake's claims hung in the air, leaving attendees exchanging nervous glances. Some shifted uncomfortably, while others sat frozen, wide-eyed in anticipation. Rogan's expression remained stoic, though his clenched jaw betrayed his rising anger. Finally, he broke his silence, his voice steady but laced with a cold edge. "You've got a lot of nerve, Jake," Rogan said, fixing his gaze firmly on the younger fighter. "You think you can walk in here, disrespect legends like Tyson, and talk down to people who've been in this sport longer than you've been alive. You've got another thing coming." Jake refused to back down. "Respect is earned, Joe, not given," he shot back. "And Tyson hasn't earned it in years. He's washed up and everyone knows it. Just because you're too blind to see it doesn't mean I am." The room was a mix of shock and intrigue, as if everyone were watching a high-stakes drama unfold in real time. Some, like Ryan Garcia, looked visibly uncomfortable, shifting in their seats and avoiding eye contact. Others leaned in, captivated by the escalating conflict. Despite the tension, Rogan maintained his composure, his calm demeanor masking the storm brewing within. Jake's provocations had turned what was supposed to be a casual gathering into a battlefield of egos. But the breaking point came suddenly and without warning. Joe Rogan stood up, his face a mask of controlled rage. It felt as if the distance between them disappeared in an instant. Before anyone could react, Rogan threw a brutal punch to Jake's chest. The impact was thunderous, and Jake's body jerked back, his face a mixture of shock and pain. The room erupted into chaos. Shouts of alarm and confusion filled the air as attendees scrambled to intervene. Security personnel and a few others jumped in to form a barrier, preventing Jake from retaliating. Clutching his chest, Jake staggered backward. The pain etched across his face. His bravado evaporated, replaced by genuine disbelief. "What the hell, Joe?" Jake gasped, his voice barely more than a whisper as he struggled to catch his breath. The concern from those around him was immediate.
Yeah?
Where's the first one?
Yeah.
All right.
You got ice on your
Do
chest?
you know where you are? In your state you're in.
Yeah, California.
What city are you in?
Want to do this?
Ryan Garcia wrapped an arm around Jake to steady him, while others frantically called for medical assistance. What had started as a war of words had spiraled into a physical altercation, leaving a lasting impact on everyone present. The once tense gathering had exploded into pandemonium, ensuring that no one would forget this night anytime soon. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, it became clear that Jake needed immediate medical attention. Ryan Garcia and a few close friends helped Jake out of the room and into a waiting car. The ride to the hospital was tense, with Jake's labored breathing and grimaces of pain making it obvious just how severe the injury was. Ryan, sitting beside him, kept a watchful eye, worry etched across his face. When they arrived at the hospital, Jake was rushed straight into the ER. The medical team quickly assessed the damage, noting the severe impact of the punch to his chest. Outside, Ryan and the others waited anxiously in the waiting area, their concern growing with every minute that passed. The hospital staff, aware of Jake's celebrity status, acted swiftly to ensure he received the best care while maintaining his privacy. The visit was a whirlwind of tests and exams. Jake was thoroughly checked to rule out serious damage to his chest or heart. Despite the intense pain, he remained conscious and cooperative, responding to questions between labored breaths. Ryan acted as both friend and intermediary, keeping Jake's family and team updated on his condition. After a thorough evaluation, the doctors provided a preliminary report. The punch had caused significant pain and bruising, but thankfully, there were no immediate signs of severe internal injury. Jake was advised to rest and undergo further observation for any potential delayed complications. The relief among his friends was palpable, though the incident had clearly made an impression on everyone involved. Now, you might think I'm exaggerating when I say Joe Rogan's punch was no joke, but trust me, this wasn't some minor altercation. Joe isn't just a commentator or comedian, he's a legitimate force in the martial arts world. Rogan began practicing martial arts at 14, and by 19, he was already a Taekwondo instructor. Oh, and did I mention he won the Massachusetts Full Contact State Championship for 4 consecutive years? Yeah, Joe's a real threat. Rogan holds black belts in both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Eddie Bravo's 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, and in another under Jean-Jacques Machado. His kickboxing skills are just as impressive, making his background in combat sports one that's tough to match. Comparing Joe's decades of rigorous training to Jake Paul's relatively short boxing career is like comparing a master chef to someone who's just learned to boil water. Jake only began his professional boxing career in January 2020, and while he's had some wins, most of his opponents weren't boxers by trade. Victories over a fellow YouTuber, an ex-NBA player, and a few MMA fighters don't exactly position him as a top-tier boxer. And when you consider that Joe Rogan, a martial artist, delivered that punch with precision and power, it was a brutal reminder of Jake's limitations. Think about it. If Jake struggled with a punch from Rogan, a martial artist, and not even a professional boxer, how would he handle the sheer force of someone like Mike Tyson? Tyson is a former undisputed heavyweight champion with over 2 decades of experience. Comparing Tyson's explosive power to Jake's relatively novice skills is like comparing a lion to a house cat. Even experts agree. Former boxing champion Roy Jones Jr. has said that while Jake has heart, he's not ready for Tyson. Joe Rogan's punch was a wake-up call for Jake, showing that he needs more time in the ring before he even thinks about stepping up to that level. Even MMA fighters are weighing in. Daniel Cormier, former UFC heavyweight champion, noted that Jake's ambitions might be a little premature, and he's got a long way to go before reaching the level of a fighter like Tyson.
You're not going to see Mike get hurt against Jake Paul. That's why they put on 16-ounce gloves and headgear. They didn't put that on to protect Mike. They put that on to protect Jake.
UFC fighter Shane Strickland also weighed in, adding his perspective on the situation.
You are a disgrace of a man. You are the epitome of weakness. You are the scum of the earth. The fact that you even have a platform or anything of that nature is a slight on society. And if I ever encounter you in real life, I hope that I just don't lose my shit and go to prison.
Tyson Fury, the current WBC heavyweight champion, also offered his thoughts on the matter. Jake Paul's reputation in the boxing world is built not only on his loudmouth persona, but also on his unconventional approach to training. While he's certainly made waves with his fights, when it comes to his commitment to training, many aren't convinced. Jake claims to follow a hardcore training routine with big-name coaches and sparring sessions with experienced fighters. His regimen supposedly includes strength training, cardio, and technical drills. Sounds impressive, right? But there's one glaring issue: Jake's consistency, or lack thereof, which makes it clear he's not ready to handle a punch from someone like Joe Rogan. One major criticism of Jake is his tendency to get distracted, particularly by his obsession with social media antics. It's as if he can't decide whether he wants to be a boxer or an internet prankster. His social media accounts are overflowing with pranks, challenges, and promotional stunts, often making it seem like his actual training is an afterthought. This has led many to question whether Jake is truly serious about boxing or if it's just another way for him to build his personal brand. A prime example of this is his highly publicized feud with Floyd Mayweather. In May 2021, Jake made headlines by snatching Mayweather's hat during a promotional event for his brother Logan's fight, a move that was more about generating buzz than anything related to boxing.
57 years old, but he's former undisputed world heavyweight king, and one guy plays computers for a living. And he's come to boxing about a year ago, so pretty even match. Listen, from being a kid on the Disney Channel to fighting Mike Tyson, who wouldn't want to do that?
Sure, Jake Paul's social media stunts made headlines and got everyone talking, but they also took the spotlight off his actual training. Critics argue that while these antics are entertaining, they steal valuable time that should be spent on serious boxing preparation. Now, let's compare Jake's approach to that of a legend like Mike Tyson. Tyson's training was nothing short of hardcore. He lived and breathed boxing from a young age, thanks to his trainer, Cus D'Amato. Tyson would wake up at 4 a.m. to run miles before breakfast, then spend hours in the gym refining his technique, sparring, and building strength. His evenings were dedicated to mental preparation, studying opponents, and strategizing. Tyson's training camp was a grueling boot camp, a far cry from Jake's more laid-back, social media-filled approach. Jake's camp often feels more like a circus compared to Tyson's military-style regimen. Sure, Jake puts in the hours, but the discipline and laser focus Tyson had are noticeably absent. Take, for example, Jake's prep for his 2021 fight with Tyron Woodley. While training, Jake was also seen pulling off elaborate social media stunts and promotional activities. Priorities, Jake? If you're following this channel, you probably heard this news first, because we're all about keeping you in the loop with the latest trends and drama. So make sure to subscribe and like this video. This kind of juicy content is hard to find elsewhere.